Hey everybody, if you're watching this video, thank you. Alright, one thing I will explain here. When we go on the ghost tour, I did not film the spiel from the hostess. And that is because I want you to go and see it yourself. It is pretty friggin' cool. I want you to go experience it yourself. I want you to hear the spiel yourself firsthand. I will tell you, we didn't see or experience anything paranormal, but the stories that they share, especially Michael's in front of 218, are pretty awesome. There's a doctor who whose office we get to stand in front of. There's a maid or a housekeeper who likes to spontaneously clean people's rooms or mess them up, depending on if she likes you or not. The ghost of a little boy named Brecky. It's really awesome. So if you get the chance when you're in Eureka Springs, go to that ghost tour. Buy your tickets in advance because it does sell out. They are very small crowds. Get the expanded tour. That's where it's at. We went into the morgue and saw some of the bottles, some of which still contain God knows what, that they dug up back in, I think it was 2019. Anyway, enjoy the video.
What the heck are you doing? Why didn't you look down like that? Huh? I don't know, because I can.
That thing tried to kill me. I think I'm going to die. I'm gonna die. Yeah. That's a long way down and up. Hey, beautiful.
I'm still alive.
Here we go.
You're not old. we're just both.
Wildly out of shape.
I'm not
I'm
walking
out
out
of-
of shape. What do you mean?
I'm not out of shape. Round is a shape, and you're beautiful.
Okay, you can record every moment. I'm going. Yeah.
We are in your downtown historic Eureka Springs. Luxury cottage suites.
Okay.
I'm allergic to stairs now.
Look, that's not my favorite.
Look at that, it's an old gas lamp right in front of that store. Ooh, a bathhouse. I wonder if I can take a bath there.
Really?
Beloved. Mm.
You should take a picture of her. Taking a picture of them.
There's people making noise somewhere down there. See, we came from over that direction. It's empty.
Oh,
no, you're fine. I didn't want to get run over. The silly chili.
Yeah. New Orleans Hotel.
Oh, you don't get grab me that. Do you need that ice? Well, you want to get a drink?
That safe has not been opened in years. No one knows what's inside it, they said.
So you got rid of your coffee. Brown beaver. We like beavers around.
They do seem to like beavers around here. Arc Mex cuisine. Put that head on in your
You look
class.
beautiful with that hat on your glass. Here, I love you. That actually sounds good.
That smells delicious right now. How cool. Yep.
It's hard to even.
Go now. Here we go now. I know that.
What?
I recognize that
Yeah.
instrument.
Ah. Sure. Thank you. This one, I need a Martin.
Yeah.
Those are over 1,000, but I
Yeah.
got really good guitars.
Mhm.
I mean, a couple $1,000. You know, you take a break for a while, and
Mhm.
then those are so perfect. They never got a tune. This goes out of tune every other second because I'm really wailing on it, you know. Even though it's a Fender.
Fenders are good, but
What's that?
Fenders are good, but Martins
Not
are.
like a Martin.
Yeah.
I mean, for acoustics, they don't. You know, you can't really get anything great until you get to those levels, and it's definitely not professional.
Yeah.
And really, one of the best guitars to even get a little better than that, it goes instead of a few hundred, it'll go a couple thousand. Just that little bit of getting better.
Mhm.
Amazing. This pick is so cold. I need like sticky stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody has any tape, do they?
basin water has made 90% of the cures of Eureka.
That's a lot of cures.
That's a hole. No, actually, it's a well. So we were over there at the park a minute ago. Now, what's that? Oh, it's a taffy puller? Let's go inside.
Oh, should we go in?
So we decided not to go inside.
Oh, there's something there you actually made about it.
Mom, look.
I know.
Purple.
Where are we going, by the way?
We should probably head back that direction towards the car. And we're going back to the car. No,
No, because
because we need the car closer here so we can get food and drink.
yeah. Also, I'm getting
Water.
really cold.
Drink water.
And cold.
Yeah.
And
And cold. This is like some 90s vintage photo shoot.
Look, it's cool bike. Yeah.
Like love.
Say no to salad.
Say no to salad, exactly.
Unless you're on a diet, then you don't have a choice.
Oh, look at this rock and granny.
Rocket Granny. Thank you, dear. We have to stay this way.
Okay, we should have.
That is a gorgeous little yard. How cool.
Look at that.
That's
Look
a
at
gorgeous.
that deer.
Vapor Maven beam me up.
That's pretty cute.
I dig that.
How's that cute?
It's funny. It's a Star Trek reference. Because I'm a closet Trekkie.
You watch Star Trek?
Are we going the right way?
What's that?
Probably doesn't
Are we
know.
going the right way?
Yes. We got hungry. So now we're going to the
Skyline.
the Sky Bar that, lo and behold, as it turns out, is in the Crescent Hotel and everything.
Oh, this is the casino hotel?
It's up there.
I was
We're
like,
actually going
looks
inside.
too nice.
Oh my gosh. Mwah.
I was getting excited.
We went up the elevator.
You did it. You woke up today. You even got out of bed.
Call from here.
While they use the restroom, this is the elevator that we came up in. As you can see, there's just artifacts innumerable here. Postcards. I mean, just anything and everything. That's the fireplace in the lobby where we just were. An unnecessary burden. Don't overtax yourself, for it only leads them into temptation.
Or you can go outside.
Oh, nice. I mean, this is pretty neat. Let me see it out.
You don't?
Yep.
Can you see?
Let's review Barfly.
The Barfly. You choose 4 full-ounce glasses of any burrs you see here.
Burrs.
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 Any of the burrs.
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 Signature cocktails.
Home Wrecker IPA.
Autopsy.
Lil Wrecker IPA. Natural State Pooter.
Porter.
Porter. Okay.
Space Goose Hazy.
Weiss Day Berliner. Spring Wrecker Wild IPA. Soulshine.
Soulshine.
Chill.
And where was that one we were looking at? The
Mom, you get your hand up when you do this.
yeah, the Virgin Bloody Mary.
Oh, that's on the first one. The children's cards. Oh, wait, no.
Autopsy.
It's on this. Those are the ones I'm interested in. The kids' cocktails are.
What are those?
Virgin Bloody Mary.
Kids, if you can.
Wow.
She's described as being kind of a tiny lady, that she's middle-aged-ish, and she is dressed in old-fashioned clothing in the style of the 1930s, basically. So people say she's standing there with her purse open, she's digging through it trying to find something, but she's having some trouble, so she's getting kind of exasperated. And some of the folks that have seen her have decided to stop and ask if they could help her out. They said she looked up, she smiled, and she said, "Oh, no, thank you, I'm fine. I'm just looking for my keys." But then they said that lady turned back to the door and disappeared entirely, which was fairly shocking for them, being that they were just having a conversation with her. We call the spirit Theodora. We believe she was an employee here during the cancer hospital days. When Norman came to town, he brought some of his staff with him. Those folks were living on this end of the 4th floor at that time. We aren't entirely sure what her job was, because right after Norman got arrested, somebody burned all of the hospital documents, either to protect him or maybe to protect themselves. But we do believe Theodora must have been a pretty well-trusted employee, because the room directly above hers is the North Penthouse. That's where Norman lived at that time. Now, present day, this door where people see Theodora trying to get back in, it is part of a modern-day 2-room suite. It is 419. It is our second most requested room in the building, because people say 419 has an added housekeeping feature. So some of our guests say that they were staying in there, they went to go enjoy town, or went in to take a shower, but when they came back into the main part of the room, they found things just a little bit nicer than they had left them previously. Sometimes she's refolded the clothes for the guests that have been left around the room. Shoes, kicked all every way, have been lined up together nicely and neatly at the foot of the bed. She'll clean up little messes left out on the surfaces. Chances are if you left your change out, she may have stacked it for you according to denomination. But only if she likes you. Now keep in mind, she was a middle-aged woman in the 1930s. So some of her values and the values of our modern day guests, they aren't always exactly the same. And if she doesn't care for the guests staying in that room, she's been known to invite them to leave, which is very awkward. I'll tell you guys my favorite story of having heard this happen. We had a couple stay in there a while back. They were engaged to be married here the next day, but the night before their wedding, they got into a little bit of an argument in 419. They decided to do the responsible thing. They went separate ways to sort of cool off. Later, they were fine, came back together, easily unlocked their door, but when they went to push it open, it felt kind of stuck. So they had to push pretty hard. What they found blocking their door were all their suitcases repacked for them, and their wedding clothes pulled from the closet, now displayed in a heap next to the suitcases. Now, we don't think she liked their behavior, but chances are she's kind of an old-fashioned gal. She may not have cared for the fact they were in that room together the night before their wedding. They did stay and they got married. No idea if those folks are still married. All right, stand up. I'm going to lead you down the hallway. Heads up to a handle off in the room number. One another here. And sometimes when people are staying in Theodore, $1,000, and he made quite a few conversions. He was a very eccentric gentleman. Firstly, he decided I will warn you guys. trying to scare the ghost from her. Outside, if you guys want to take your masks off, absolutely can. So remember I told you guys that Norman took off the original balconies? He put on the steel and concrete balconies that we have here. They go all the way up to the 4th floor. The original wooden balconies only went up to the 3rd floor. So this next haunting is best witnessed here between 10:30 and 11 o'clock at night. Looking up at that 3rd floor balcony, you see where that last light is on the far left-hand side? Generally in that area is where this is witnessed. People said that they've seen a woman standing there. So she's in a white dress, she stands there for just a moment, then her body is seen falling over the railing and she lands here in the garden.
Now when we see her, you can kind of see through her a little bit, and she's enshrouded in a white mist when she makes her fall. So we call her the girl in the mist or the lady in the mist. Some people who have seen this haunting said they actually noticed the dark shadow of a man standing behind her, and said that once she hit the ground, his body backed away from the railing and he disappeared. We have a very old urban legend that circulates around town that they say that during the Crescent College days, one of our young ladies fell to her death from the original third floor balcony. Now, we don't have any evidence to be able to support this story in the newspapers or any of our school records, but one of our historians has actually spent the better part of 4.5 years trying to find out who this girl was. We still don't know her identity, but she talked to a whole lot of people in town whose families have lived here for generations. They said the reasoning we wouldn't have that kind of evidence is because she was suspected to have been pregnant at the time of her death. So for this young lady to have been pregnant and unmarried in an all-girls school, roughly around World War I, that would have been a pretty bad story for her rich and important family. Definitely nothing the college would have wanted to publicize if they didn't have to. They didn't want people to be thinking about that when they were making the choice whether or not to send their girls here. Alright guys, I'm going to lead us back inside, and we're going to go we might still have people down there from the last tour. So what I'm going to have you guys do is it gets just a little funkier. They're like, oh, people aren't going to see this, except for every ghost tour every day. Go ahead all the way down to that last room down there. Look out for low-hanging everything. Go ahead all the way down into the last room. Go ahead and take a seat. To that choice. Now I have some fun photos I'm going to share with you guys about Norman as I talk. I'm going to pass them around. I do like to let you guys know that I clean these between every tour, so I'm not giving you like gross pictures to touch. But if after you guys touch them, if you'd like to use some hand sanitizer, I have some over here in case you guys would like to. Now, Norman used to be a very handsome young man. So here is a photo of him as a teenager. And he was trained as a machinist by his father, but he wanted to be rich and famous. So he started to go to these performances called vaudeville. For those of you guys that don't know what vaudeville is, back in the day before we had TV and radio, we go and see a live performance. So usually we had singers, dancers, acrobats, and magicians. So he saw this magic act and he said, oh, I want to do that, but I'm going to do it better. So here's a photo of Norman doing his magic. He did what was called mentalist magic. That's where you pretend like all the magic you're doing is with the power of your own mind. So this is Norman standing at the head of the gentleman that's laying down. And at first he did the magic all by himself, but then he realized that all the most popular magic acts, they all had lovely assistants. So he advertised for one of them. He called her Madame Pearl Tangley. There were many Madame Pearl Tangleys over the years, but he had her dressed like a gypsy fortune teller, and she would do the mind reading part of the act. Then he would levitate her at the end of the performance. He ended up marrying one of those Madame Pearl Tangleys, not married for very, very long. Now, when he got done with that, that's when he came up with the conversion for the Calliophone. He actually had 13 different businesses in his hometown. That place was in financial ruin by the time Norman was in his 30s. So they liked him there a whole lot because he ended up reviving the economy. So one of his first businesses was his radio station. So in 1925, he opened this radio station. It had the call letters KTNT, which stood for Know the Naked Truth. Now, at the very beginning of radio, it was pretty boring. It was just instrumental dance music and weather reports for the most part. So he decided he wanted lively entertainment. He would have local musicians and comedians come on, and on the weekend, he would host free parties outside the radio station and give out free ice cream. So people would come from Iowa and Illinois for this free ice cream and live entertainment. And he was doing all of this because he wanted people to listen to his talk radio. So he would rant for hours against the establishment. He didn't like organized religion. He didn't like the government. He hated doctors. He called the American Medical Association the American Meat Cutters Association. He called them all quacks and butchers. And he said that big medicine's objective was to keep everybody sick. So even from the very beginning, he was talking about alternative medicine. You'll hear the ambiance of the kitchen moving around above us up here. So eventually, when he was looking for some content for his broadcast, he learned about Dr. Charles Ozias from Kansas City that had an injectable formula that he said cured cancer. So he decided
he was going to create a frenzy. He had his listeners write in. He was going to choose 5 cancer patients, send them to Dr. Charles for these injections. He was going to report back about their progress. Now, within 6 months, we know the first of those 5 people was dead, and in less than a year, they all had died. He claimed they were all alive and well, and you can now come to him for the new and improved secret formula number 5 when he opened his first cancer hospital, the Baker Institute in Muscatine, Iowa. So this was his 3rd cancer hospital here. And here's a photo of his lovely staff. Now, obviously, he had gotten the attention of the American Medical Association. They started to warn against him, saying that he was a quack and that he was going to kill people. He wasn't going to be able to save them. So he sued them for slander. And in court, he showed up with 3 witnesses claiming that he cured them of cancer. But the AMA showed up with 100 witnesses claiming that they had sent family members to Norman. They received the treatment. They were sent home being told they were cured, and they had all died. So he did not end up winning his case. So that was pretty bad for business. So he decided he was going to have an outdoor medical demonstration. He wanted all the skeptics and medical professionals to come and watch this demonstration. About 32,000 people showed up. And it was a big party. He had a lot of people that showed up claiming they'd been cured of cancer. They had live music and free food and all this stuff. At the very end of this demonstration, a man came out named Mandus Johnson. He said he had gotten 2 injections of the secret formula, and he removed his hat to expose a huge cancerous growth on the top of his head. Then Dr. Statler, the head doctor, came over, gave him 1 more injection into that growth, and apparently he manipulated that growth with his bare hands, and they say he lifted it off, exposing Mandus's brain to 32,000 people. Then Norman jumped up on stage and drank an entire bottle of secret formula number 5, claiming that it's only targeting cancerous tissue. Now, of course, the uneducated folks thought this was an amazing thing, that he was a great healer, but all the doctors were like, there's no way that guy would have lived through that, so it's either fake or he died immediately. So 2 weeks later, he held another party just to show that Mandus Johnson was alive and well. Well, right around this time when people started to compare Norman to Jesus as a great healer, the American Medical Association and the American Radio Commission teamed together to pull his broadcasting license. They didn't want him to be able to reach that many people, and Iowa issued a warrant for his arrest for practicing medicine without a license. Rather than go to jail, he went to Mexico. There he opened a second radio station that could be heard as far as Alaska, and his second cancer hospital was right over the border in Laredo, Texas, and he was there for less than a year. When he went back he snuck over the border, went back to Muscatine, turned himself in for arrest. He spent 1 day in jail, paid a $1,000 fine, then he ran for governor of Iowa. He did not win. He also ran for senator. He did not win that either. But eventually he got invited to Eureka Springs by a guy named Claude Fuller. This guy was longtime mayor. He was a lawyer and a banker. Of course, he saw Norman. He saw dollar signs because he saw what Norman had done for the economy in Muscatine. He wanted him to come here and save Eureka Springs. And Norman did, actually. He's hired anybody in town willing to work for him. And this place was very, very prosperous. Then he decided that he was going to overstep Claude Fuller. He started to whisper in people's ears, you don't need him anymore because now Norman Baker is here. Of course, it got back to Claude Fuller. So Claude Fuller began to investigate what Norman had been up to up here. He found out that he had mailed out 1/3 brochures. These brochures had photos of cancerous growths for intimidation. He said that it looks like a wart today, but if you don't come and get it checked out, you could be dead in a matter of weeks. He said, come to my hospital resort in the clouds, bring your tennis racket and your fishing gear. I'll have you back out on the course in no time. So he was trying to appeal to people in late stages of cancer. He also said that he could cure your cancer in 6 weeks, no matter what stage you were in or what kind you had. And he claimed he could do that without x-rays, without surgery, without radium. So that ended up getting him arrested in 1939, and he eventually went away to the Leavenworth Penitentiary in 1941 on 7 counts of mail fraud. Now, when he got arrested, he was not the only one. They actually arrested 7 people here, but the only ones to serve hard time were Norman, his sort of best friend guy, Rennie Bellows, who was like a sidekick kind of person, and his head doctor, Dr. Statler. Dr. Statler had something called an eclectic medical degree. These were only recognized in rural states. This program took 2 years to complete, so you could like get out of high school, hypothetically, do this program, And in 2 years, you had this very limited credential. It was only technically good for herbal and physical therapies, but he was the head doctor here, and he had the highest level of education of any of Norman's staff, which is kind of terrifying. Now, those guys decided that they were going to sue Norman for money they'd never received when they were in jail. But rather than let them have that money, he put all of his assets into his girlfriend's name, Thelma Yacht. So she lived here part of the time. She also lived in Texas. She would come here twice a month with empty suitcases, take all of the cash from this cash hospital, and hide it places for Norman so he could go collect it later. So he felt pretty good about putting these things into her name. But when he got out of jail, he found out she had married a son of a senator in Texas. He lost everything he had put into Thelma's name. So when he got out of jail, his one plan was to go back to Muscatine, where he used to be beloved and had all those businesses, with the intention of opening a tuberculosis hospital for them. Iowa was not interested. So he ended up moving onto a yacht off the coast of Miami, and he lived on that yacht until his death in 1958. At that point, he was 75. And his death certificate says that he died of cirrhosis of the liver, complicated by a carcinoma. He died of cancer. Now, he claimed until his death that that secret formula was effective, but I'll tell you what, he didn't use any of it. He sought conventional cancer treatment in Miami. Based on that cirrhosis, I think he was very well medicated. Now, when people died, they were brought down here to the morgue, and autopsies were performed by that Dr. Statler guy. And what he was doing is he was cutting out the cancerous parts of the body, putting them into jars of preserving liquid. Those jars were either being stored down here on the basement level, otherwise Norman picked out his favorite jars. Those were on display up in the lobby, he said, as proofs of his success, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense when in the other breath you've claimed to cure cancer non-surgically and all of your patients have lived. But people wanted this to be the truth. Now, when this place was shut down abruptly, they basically locked the doors and walked away for 6.5 years. So when the Chicago guys bought the place, they unknowingly bought it with all those bottles and jars. They kept them for a while, but the present day staff had been told nobody had seen these jars in about 50 years and that they had gone to the city dump. Well, we believed this story until they were all found buried in the backyard in February of 2019. Which was very exciting. We had CNN here and the Smithsonian. We were kind of a big deal for 5 seconds. If you guys are interested in seeing the dig site while you're here, it is in the back left corner of the property. So this is actually the front of the hotel. So if you're facing the front of the hotel, we're in the basement of the annex. Just to the left of the building here, we have a walking path that'll lead you guys back there. If you guys go out there tonight, just light it up for yourselves because it's a gradual decline and there is no light between the front of the hotel and the back of the hotel. So I want you to be able to see where you're going. We actually built a little shelter over the top with a window so you can look in there. Now, when the University of Arkansas came, they took with them quite a few things they thought they could get a good sample from, but they did leave us a handful of things, and because you guys are the expert expanded tour, I get to share with you the best stuff that we don't show the other tours. So I'm about to lead you guys into this next room. Let me get my little flashlight out here. There are a couple of fun things in the hallway here. Also, this next room has a step down. In the back of the room, the pavement is uneven, so please be careful. But as you guys come through, there's a photo of Norman sitting in his desk here. And there's a photo of what the lobby used to look like, painted like a circle. So that's pretty fun. Really trying to pass this place off as light and country was. So you guys can see, watch your step here as you go on in. You see all that stuff in that big display there? That stuff is original. We have a lot of medication bottles because this place was also set up as a general practice for more minor ailments. It was all alternative medicine without a whole lot of proof behind most of it, so I'm not sure how many people were cured for anything that they came here for. But you see all these bottles that are stacked up together that look like the same bottle, but they have different colored liquids inside. They found quite a few of those, so Hazmat left them for us, and the university left them. We're thinking we don't have proper analysis back on anything, but we are thinking that's probably the various stages of Secret Formula 5 before it was all mixed together. Now, even though Norman knew before even the first cancer hospital this wasn't doing anything, he stood over his nursing staff every single time they made a batch to make sure they were doing it perfectly. Because he wasn't only trying to trick the patients here, he was trying to trick most of the staff. So you guys see this little guy here in the hole. This is our hotel historian, and that is our landscaper that found these jars accidentally in the backyard when she was trying to level the ground for a compost pile. Now she called him and said, hey, we have some antique stuff in the yard I think you should see. And he had all this research about Norman, so he knew exactly what it was that we were finding back there. Now I'm going to have you guys step this way because I'm that they caught that thermal image in front of that they believe is the spirit of the Civil War soldier. So if you guys remember the thing that was glowing red lined up with his shoulder, it's the number 2 here. And then his head was like this, looking back at you guys like that. I'm gonna unlock the thing. You guys get to see the intact specimen jars they left for us. So all these jars here that are sort of the squatty shape are all specimen jars. All the ones that did the best were the ones with the glass toppers. The ones that had the cork tops did not do very well in the ground. As soon as the cork cracked, the liquid got out, but these have their specimens in them. They're just very dry and crispy. Now Hazmat tested this liquid for us immediately because we wanted to know how to deal with it. We were thinking it was going to be formaldehyde because that's the proper preservative for this sort of stuff. Well, it turns out they're all preserved in some low grade of alcohol. So not only is that less expensive, but it's a lot less effective. So for as long as the specimens have been in there, in the ground, back up out of the ground, exposed to light and oxygen, they've changed quite a bit in color and consistency since we got them out of the ground. Now, a couple of things that are very interesting. They told us that everything was buried at one time. So they were not using that area like a landfill. What we think happened is during the reign of the mobsters is that they were like, hey, Stevie, get all this stuff out of here. And if they thought these had formaldehyde, the city dump wouldn't have taken them. And you have to pay to take stuff there. So we think they dug the hole and buried it all at once. Now, something else that was interesting is that they said that the collection of bottles and jars we have here is from all 3 cancer hospitals, including the stuff they took away with them, 1929 to 1939. So that's a little interesting that Norman would have went through the trouble to have all the stuff brought here. We think it's because he wanted complete control over these things. He didn't want anyone to be trying to analyze them to find out what's going on in there. So we're very curious to hopefully eventually get some analysis. And they're supposed to bring us more cool stuff back, which I'm hoping is going to happen. My concern is that I'm worried it's all in an Indiana Jones warehouse and we may never see it again. All right, guys, so as you guys come out of here, watch your step. Meet me in the first room, the office. So we can compare what's going on with the writing. Because sometimes I'll have people take pictures only with flash and they'll go, oh, I wish I'd gotten some the other way as well. As you guys come on in here, you might be noticing that the morgue seems kind of tiny. It used to be a whole lot bigger than it is today. Half of our spa used to be morgue. All that laundry room we walked through, that used to be morgue as well. This area right behind you that's all closed off, that used to be open and part of the morgue. That is now the office for our head of maintenance, Carlos. What a lucky guy he is that he gets to fix all the stuff down here. He doesn't seem to be too fazed about it though. Anytime I come down here and see Carlos, he's got all the lights on and his music going and he's singing along, so he's having a good time. So this is just a sliver of the autopsy room. It would have been much bigger than this. I will tell you, this is a table in the autopsy room, but it is not an autopsy table. This was added either in the late 40s or early 50s, so it is pretty old, but it's not as old as the cancer hospital. We know that they used to have real autopsy tables in here, and because of the way they have the split, we only have one of our original drains showing. This is where the table would have been. Because when you cut into a human body, got a whole lot of liquid that needs to go somewhere. They were apparently just letting it drain right down into the floor. You guys see my weird little closet thing over here? We call this the meat locker because it is an old-fashioned icebox. So remember the kitchen used to have use of this space back in the day? They also had use of the floor above us. That's where they're hanging out today. But they used to have big cuts of meat in here with large blocks of ice. When this eventually became the morgue, they did not upgrade with modern refrigeration. So even back then, they would have had the bodies in here on metal tables with ice around the room to be able to keep them cold. See that back wall is not doing very well? That is Victorian cork. That's what they used to use for insulation before we had styrofoam and all that kind of stuff. So the bodies were down here just long enough to have their autopsy performed. Then the local funeral home came to pick them up very late at night. They were going out that first room that we were all sitting in, out the front of the building. So even though we don't have good records for the cancer hospital because of that convenient document fire, we have perfect records for the local funeral home. Nobody destroyed those documents. So we know that in 22 months, which is just as long as this place was functional, they processed 40 bodies. Now 40 is a lot, but not when you consider most people were probably coming here in very late stages of cancer because of that guarantee. Sounded a little too good to be true. Now Norman was not a very good person, but he was not a serial killer. He was not a mad scientist, and he was not torturing people. He was trying to collect their money before they died. He knew that once they passed away, those folks were going to stop making him money and start costing him money because their bodies had to be processed and sent home. So his ideal patients would come, spend their money, get their injections and their mental treatments, and roughly 6 weeks later, they were sent home being told they were totally cured of cancer. So people would go home and pass away at whatever rate they were going to prior to coming here, because unfortunately they hadn't spent the last of their money on a cure. They'd spent it on a very expensive, kind of strange vacation shortly before their deaths. Now take a lot of pictures down here. I do like to tell you guys about a couple of really great photos that I saw taken during a couple of my tours. One of them was taken in that mirror that's in the hallway that we came through. That is the way we're going to end up exiting out. I had a little girl on my tour that was probably around 9. She took a series of photos in that mirror, and then she was really excited to show me about 12 feet away, oh, I think I got something. So she shows me this picture where it's her face, but partially over her face was the face of an old man. He had a scruffy white beard and a crumpled prospector hat, and after having looked at that group for an hour, I knew that man was not a part of our tour. And I will say, kids are always going to be better at photo editing than I could ever possibly imagine. But the fact that she took this photo and then showed it to me only a few feet away, I would like to believe it was a legitimate ghost photo. I did have a guy take a series of photos in front of this meat locker doing selfies, and he ended up getting the shadow of a man wearing a wide-brimmed hat behind him when he didn't have a hat on at all. So that was kind of exciting. And I had a group of girls that were in their 20s, and one of these girls was very sensitive to spirit energy. So she said she started to feel a very familiar feeling down here of a weight on her chest. So she told her friends to take pictures all around her to see if anything showed up. And in one of those photos, they captured an image of a face right in front of this jar. So I've seen a handful of really weird pictures taken down here that I cannot quite explain, and I hope that for all of you. So at least give it a try. Remember, take a series of photos, and do try to take photos in both of these mirrors. Now there is one more thing I'm going to point out to you in this room, and it is my tip jar. If you guys happen to be in possession of money that you now believe belongs to me, feel free to leave it in there. So walk around, take pictures, even in the rooms we've already been in. I'm going to open that door, so whenever you guys are ready to come out, you can. You don't feel like I've trapped you.
see it. Look at his head.
Chips and salsa.
A couple of days we noticed that he shaved his beard, so half of his beard off. And then this morning we were talking about beard, and I looked over.
All right, take it now. All right.